What's up, everybody? Derek Anderson, the DA, and this is my review of the Rings of Power episodes 1 and 2 on Amazon Prime. Let's just get this right out of the way, right off the bat. The only reason this series even exists is because Jeff Bezos wanted his very own Game of Thrones. So he went out, spent $250 million, right, to get the rights to make the Rings of Power, and then he proceeded to hire some people that I don't think these guys know the first thing at all about, number one, the fantasy genre whatsoever, okay? Because it feels like this thing, they just went to, like, you know, the fantasy cliche guide to making movies, and they just copy and pasted everything that they saw into a script and changed up some names, slapped some, you know, kind of Lord of the Rings theme around it, and then just pushed it out onto the production stage. That's what it feels like, because this thing absolutely is charmless. It's devoid of anything interesting, anything unique. It feels like, as I've been saying, fantasy the show. They just threw fantasy elements, fantasy people, fantasy situations, fantasy, but they didn't do it with any kind of resonance or interest or nuance. It's just there. There, you like fantasy? Here's fantasy, and that's it. They don't really do anything else with it. So far, it doesn't even feel like they have a direction of where they're wanting to go. They just seem like they're just telling little snippets of stories here and there. Centrally, we're following 5 characters, and these 5 characters, one of which actually has kind of an interesting fun arc, and I'll save that one for last. The other 4 are just like, why? This is dull, this is boring. It has all the markings as well of, you know, how can we take this small little 2-hour idea and stretch it into 50 episodes, right? Because they probably had enough material, if they really wanted to make like maybe one solid movie about, okay, here's how the Rings of Power were forged, okay? And tell stories in and around that. They probably had like one solid idea if you really want to take all of that information. And they probably had enough to stretch it out maybe to a season, but to stretch it out to what they're doing, which I think is going to be 5 seasons, 8 episodes each, or 50 episodes or something like that. I mean, this thing is starting off like just the dullest show you've ever seen in your entire life. But let's go ahead and get to it. I'm gonna just go down the 5 characters that kind of make up the first 2 episodes and just talk about the nonsense. This is really bad writing. So first up is Galadriel, right? So Galadriel is revenging her brother's death. You know, she's like this vengeance character in this story, but the problem is that she actually has no interesting moments whatsoever, and this is the lead actor, okay, this is the lead character that we're following, and she has no interesting moments whatsoever. The beginning scene that she had as a child, where she's kind of making this little paper boat, she's like little Georgie from It, that's like the only scene that I actually felt anything for the character, like, oh man, they wrecked her little boat, man, those little mean kids, you know, that's kind of how I felt. But other than that, mostly she's singly focused on her mission for that first episode, even to the detriment of her own like team, her own squadron, you know, swore to help her, but she don't really give a damn about them. She's about finishing her mission of revenging her brother's death. The mission comes first even before her men, and it's kind of like messed up, like you kind of don't like her. It makes her really unlikable. I don't know if the writers were going for that, but it makes her like a super unlikable character, and this is the person we're supposed to like empathize with during this whole thing, so that's bad. I mean, there's no good lines, there's no insight, you know, like Galadriel is like kind of this character I've always liked hearing what she had to say, because she always had like interesting insights into the whole realm of Middle Earth. And yeah, nothing interesting. It's just cliche stuff that we've all heard before. Again, just stuff that you hear in every fantasy show that you've ever watched in your life. That's what Galadriel is doing in this one, and it's kind of unfortunate because very interesting character, and they do nothing with her at all in these first 2 episodes. And then she has like this moment of truth moment where she like jumps off the ship, right? Like she jumps off the ship to, I guess, swim back to Middle Earth or whatever. And it's, again, so cliche. Like you get the swelling music and then you get the slow motion, take my hand. You know, like, hey, y'all spent $1 billion on this crap. Guardians of the Galaxy did it far better for like much less money. So, you know, I don't know, man. And then that shipwrecked scene with the worm, that was just completely laughable. Like the green screen on that is just like totally obvious. And the dialogue like really feels like, this is where the dialogue to me felt the least like Tolkien, okay? This is where that whole, you know, Galadriel, vengeance is thy name bit just goes like a bit too far and just becomes like hilarious at this point. I literally started laughing like, you haven't seen the things that I've seen, and if I had to name all the people that I've lost, it would take you your entire lifetime. Man, I just fell out laughing. That was just the dumbest line ever in this entire show. That was the worst thing that she said or anybody said, and it's coming from the lead actress of the show. She is by far has the worst acting. The worst acting in this show belongs to that chick. I can't remember the name, Morphed Clark or something like that. Has the worst acting. She's the worst actress in this show, okay? By far. I don't know how she got this particular part, but yeah, she's not very good. Galadriel is like the biggest letdown in this entire story. And then you get to Arondir, and you know, he's in love with a lady, and he's crawling through tunnels looking for orcs. That's kind of his first 2 episodes. Honestly, like, he's just a dull character. Like, he's just kind of a boring character. Kind of like, you know, Galadriel is an interesting character that didn't do nothing. This is a boring character right off the bat. He's just uninspiring. He doesn't really do much. You know, his dialogue, I think, is the biggest part because he's just uninspired, right? Like, his dialogue is just super clean, it's super polished, it's just super plain. It's just, there's nothing to it. It's a giant nothing burger of a character. That's the thing with like a Tolkien story, especially when Peter Jackson did it, you know, it just kind of elevated their dialogue. There was music to it, right? You know, you heard them talk. There was always kind of rhythm and music in the way that these guys talk, and he's just talking like blandly. Like, I don't really care what this guy is saying or what he has to say. When you put these types of characters in just for the sake of throwing a character in, you know, if you don't have any kind of background or anything to do with this character, it just comes off as just kind of boring, right? Now, the underground cave stuff, like, you know, where he's crawling through, he's going underwater, and he's going through those tunnels and everything, those moments, I actually thought that was okay, all right? You know, very claustrophobic, you know, tight, you know, it was intense. It was one of the few moments of the show that actually kind of kept my attention. You know, I wasn't like checking my phone, because trust me, I was checking my phone throughout this entire thing. It was like, man, this is boring as hell. It was one of the few moments in the show that actually, it showed that they could put together a decent scene when they want to, you know? So, you know, it wasn't a total loss, but yeah, most of this stuff was just kind of like, yeah. Then we move on to his lady love, Bronwyn, that healer chick. So with her character, now, she's just another one. Number one, she's just another cliche character. That much we already saw, but, you know, the actress wasn't terrible, you know, in playing that part out. So, you know, hats off to the actress, I guess. But she's in a forbidden romance with the most boring character in the show. You know, they just tell us, yeah, they like each other. We're just told that they like each other, but we don't know why. We don't even feel like any chemistry really between them. So it's just kind of like, yep, romance, elf, human, we got to do it. So go ahead and throw these two in there, and bam, there we go. But I will say she had like one of the most funniest moments when, like, at the very end of episode 2, like, she's trying to kill this orc, like an orc for whatever reason that cannot kill like this small woman and her child. Like, what happened to orcs, right? Like, this orc is like the worst orc in the history of orcs, man. This woman is a healer, right? Like, she's not a warrior. She's not used to any kind of battle or anything like that. She's like a healer, right? And she lops off this orc's head with a sword, who just happened to have a sword laying around too, by the way. Like, I don't know if that was the orc's sword. Maybe it was. I don't know why he didn't use it on them if it was his sword, you know, just kind of left it down while he was checking the place out. I don't get it. But she just happened to have this sword laying around. It was like, man, this chick had like a whole house full of weapons, and like, ain't you a healer? She had this saw blade that she jams into his back, and then she had like a knife in her pocket. She got a sword sitting over there in the corner, and I'm like, wait a minute, aren't you a healer? Like, isn't this like an apothecary? Like, what are you doing with all these weapons laying around? I could just be nitpicking, but I just found that scene particularly funny, and it made me laugh. And then she comes back to the bar with the orc's head, just slams it on the bar like, boom, come with me if you want to live. You know, it was like that. I just laughed, man. I thought it was funny. It was just like, come on, man. Like, this chick is cliched as hell. She's supposed to be like this timid little healer woman, but she turns into She-Ra, starts carving this orc up. She's not scared whatsoever. You know, I thought that was just hilarious. This had to have been like the weakest orc in the history of orcs. Like, I guess the weak ones just kind of died out, and then like when we get to like the Peter Jackson trilogy, like these orcs suddenly are badass, you know, because them old orcs died off and they're done for, and these new orcs, like, we're the ones that came along through evolution. Like, the weak ones died out, because them orcs in the Peter Jackson, yeah, they would have wiped this woman and her son out in like 5 seconds. Like, they would have, yeah, pop, 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 slice, slice, gone. Like, there's no chance. Like, this dude was just kind of a punk. Then we get to the Nori story. Oh my god, man. Like, that whole Harfoot stuff just didn't belong in this thing at all, right? There was really no purpose for this particular part of the story to even be in this story. Like, the other parts of the stories, you can kind of see how, okay, this kind of stuff fits together somewhat. Like, you can see the story, you know, behind it, what they can go for, where it can lead to. Like, this story has no business being in this show. This Harfoot stuff was just rubber stamped in there because they needed hobbits. People like the hobbits. Oh, well, we ain't got hobbits in this time frame, but what do we got? We ain't got nothing, but, you know, maybe we can make up a hobbit, you know, well, let's call them Harfoots. Okay, yeah, that'll work. Go ahead, put them in there. Well, let's see what happens. You know, that's what this story feels like. This story feels like throw it in and see what happens, because there's no resonance to this at all. It just doesn't resonate with anything else that you see going on in the rest of Middle Earth. It's like this one little one-off story. Remember that one episode of Stranger Things where like 11 runs off to like hang out with some chicks and it had nothing to do with anything else that was going on in the town? That's what this thing is. This part of the show has absolutely nothing to do with anything else going on out there. I know eventually they can drag it and point to it, but it just feels like it's forced in here. So we got this dull, waste of time story about a village of hobbit-like creatures who really aren't hobbits, you know. I guess they're like the early hobbits. I mean, it's so stupid that they're even here in the first place. It's like every time the Harfoots came on, that's when I started checking out. And like, okay, I don't really care what's going on. Like, I don't really care. I don't care what this part I just don't care about. And it seems like they're only there so that they can kind of push this Gandalf character, because you know it's Gandalf, right? This little stranger that just pops in, that's Gandalf. Okay, they ain't said it's Gandalf, but we know it's Gandalf, and they just use that to maybe say, hey, this is why Gandalf likes hobbits so much, or whatever. You know, that's what they're doing. They're pushing this Gandalf character in here. You know, eventually we'll probably get to the point where they drop his name for some kind of dramatic effect, because he hasn't spoken English, he hasn't said his name, he hasn't said anything yet about who he is or why he's there. So we're gonna build up to that scene eventually. You already know it. You can just see it already. Just see it. Nori, this character Nori, is like, every time you see her on the screen, she's like channeling her inner Frodo or her inner Sam. Like, she's literally acting like she just saw Lord of the Rings. Oh, I need to act like that. It's hard to say who she watched more, because she's kind of like part Frodo, part Sam at different times, so you really can't pin her down. It's just, like I said, just bad, and it's just boring, and it's unimportant. And then from all the other, I guess, I'm just gonna call them hobbits, even though they're called Harfoots. I'm just gonna call them hobbits. So from all of these other hobbits, all you get is this blathering dialogue, blah, 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 blah. It's just nothing. There's nothing going on in this part of the story. I don't care what these dudes say. The little black dude hobbit, I don't care what he has to say. All of these other hobbits, I just don't care, all right? They're not interesting. They're not like Sam and Frodo. They're not like Pip. They're not like Merry. They're nothing like these guys, okay? They're just out there. They're just out there running their mouths, and they're boring. And then, like, there's the scene where, like, her pops breaks his damn ankle. Like, what was that? Like, because, you know, they're kind of, like, interspersing that between, you know, him trying to put up this tent, and then, like, Gandalf riding with this stick on the ground. And it's like, I don't get it. You know, he's trying to tell her something. This good guy's trying to, like, put up a tent. And then when, like, Gandalf's stick hits, like, a rock, like, he breaks his ankle. And I'm like, was that supposed to connect with that? You know, and that was like another funny scene when you sit back and think about it, because like this dude is up here like struggling with this thing, right? And there's like this rope that's kind of connected to this wheel, and he's trying to like kind of steady this pole, and then the rope breaks, and everybody just kind of watches, sit around, just like, I wonder if he's gonna make it out of this alive. That was the only thing that got me, man. He's like, you guys are supposed to be like, hearts are bigger than your feet. Y'all just sitting there watching my man struggle with the pole. Like, what's up with y'all, man? Come on. Y'all just sat up there and watched this dude break his damn ankle. Y'all didn't see the rope break? Y'all didn't hear that snap? Like, what the hell? There's like 25 of y'all out here. Y'all, not one of y'all little punks could have came over here and helped me out. Y'all saw me struggling with this thing. I would have been pissed off if I was dude. Like, snap, down he goes. Like, man, what the hell? And then they come running. Oh, now y'all want to come run to my aid. Like, where were y'all 20 seconds ago? I'm sitting up here struggling with this pole. Man, I can't wait to get up out of this village. These punks, man, y'all just sat here and watched me break my ankle and y'all didn't get up and do nothing? Man, I would have been... Y'all literally sat here and watched me struggle and y'all didn't do shit. Thought y'all hearts was supposed to be bigger than y'all feet. This stuff is stupid, man. Y'all sat there and watched my man break his shit and didn't do nothing. I thought that was the funniest thing. I was just like, oh, he was struggling, and then all of a sudden they just jumped up. So Elrond, now we get to Elrond. Elrond was like the only good part of this whole show, okay? His only good part, all right? It's like him, you know, he's got a mission to do, okay? Like the first episode, he's talking with Galadriel and they're dealing with like elf stuff. Like none of that stuff in the first episode. Nothing in the first episode was about anything but vengeance Galadriel, okay? That's the only thing that was about. And Elrond was just kind of waiting. Now we get to episode 2. Elrond has more to do. He's got to go to the dwarfs and convince them to kind of join his little campaign. It sounds like they're going to be building some stuff. So that's good. I liked that. Like that whole scene between Elrond and Durin, well done stuff, okay? It feels like it was written by a different writer. I bet it was. Lots of fun, him and Durin going back and forth, breaking those rocks and everything like that. Love that. That was fun. That was interesting. And it was a good way to kind of build up into the two of their relationship because there's been some falling out, right? The Princess Disa character, she just kind of came in and left, you know, and she, you know, because she was just there for the, you know, the diversity bingo card. All right, check. We got a, you know, big black woman playing a dwarf. Cool. We good? All right. Case closed, right? She didn't interfere with the story, thank God, but we'll see how long that lasts. I did enjoy like the building of that relationship between Elrond and Durin. Like Elrond's kind of like that asshole friend that only shows up when he needs something, right? He's like skipped all of your important stuff that's happened in your life, skipped your wedding, skipped the birth of your kids, but here he is knocking at the door. Hey man, I need to borrow something. Like, you know, hey man, what? Bro, you barely show up. I never hear from you until you need something. He's that kind of friend, all right? We all know that friend. We all have that friend. Some of y'all might be that friend, you know? But yeah, that was interesting. I like that dynamic between the two of them. It actually helps develop characters when you give character flaws like that. And one of the characters is supposed to be a likable guy, and you do like him, but then you kind of say, oh yeah, this guy's kind of a jerk, you know? Okay, I got you. Okay, but it's good, and it kind of finish up, do a little bit of redemption, you know, Durin goes to bat for him. So yeah, it works on a lot of different levels. So it actually shows that there's some people in here that can do some sort of competent writing. Honestly, I wouldn't mind a series just about the two of them. You know, if you showed Elrond and Durin and them just going off on adventures and just trying to figure out how they're going to forge these rings or whatever and stuff like that, I'd be fine. You can leave everybody else out of the show. At least they've done a good job with that particular aspect of the show. Didn't mind it at all. But unfortunately, that's only like 1/5 of the show. The other 4/5 are just boring dog crap. So, you know, you can't really win. But anyway, folks, what did you think about this first 2 episodes of Rings of Power? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Go ahead, drop down in the comments, leave me your thoughts and your opinions on that. And I want to thank you for watching. See you next time.